In category 3, we're going to be talking about resolving issues and promoting student success. So the first strategy that we talked about was emotional communication, and I stress my thoughts on how important it is to talk to Carl. And we will only want to remove Carl from that classroom if we absolutely have to. We're gonna go take that walk. We're gonna work on breathing together to try to release some endorphins to his head and just try to relieve that stress. You know, when you walk outside, you can really feel a difference between being in the school and being outside. So I think that is going to be a huge part in kind of relieving his stress there. And going on to physical activity and releasing the aggression and having that relationship with a wellness teacher, I think, is crucial, especially with his ADHD symptoms. Doing laps and cardiovascular work like around the gym and jumping jacks and so forth, and push-ups, sit-ups can all help relieve these aggressions that he is outbursting. Also, with that emotional communication, he can communicate to a reward system. We can identify those positive reinforcers, like if he likes kicking a soccer ball into a goal or hard against the wall or punching a punching bag in a certain spot or target. We can set up that reward system for him. Expressing feelings and using words and pictures, charts and music, do anything that we can to kind of pinpoint his feelings that way. So he can be descriptive with his words. He can point at pictures of faces of how he feels. We can use particular types of music to kind of engage him and really have him reflect on how he feels in that way. The energies can be controlled by the music. And we want to do those regular school counselor visits, and he can kind of hear from the student council, the school counselor, what strategies he can use in coping with his behavior. And she can kind of explain to him how he should act inside of the classroom, because, you know, some of those cues he might be missing. Maybe he didn't get that. Moving on to number 2, making that regular observation, going into his classroom and documenting his behavior from time to time. You're going to have huge success with this. And with documenting his behavior and what he is lacking and what he is doing, what students are doing to him, what his teacher is doing, how are they interacting with him, documenting all those capacities is really going to help us make his IEP goals attainable. So, and we're going to make those appropriate, and we're going to ask questions from his recent teachers and also his parents for what do we want to see done to make Carl's behavior disappear. What do you think will work? What does work? And what are Carl's reinforcers? The third point, going into my resources, I want to, at last resort, I want to get a teacher aide in there, because it is very hard to have access to student aides for teacher aides, you know, because they require a lot of money, and usually if they are in a class, they're in and tied to one kid for their IEP specifically. So I have to really manage my teacher aides. So that is going to literally be my last resort. Ideally, I would want him to be a male to go in there, and he can really bond with Carl and give him breaks when needed. And maybe he has a student that I'm sure he has friends in the class, and maybe like some time with a friend's one-on-one. That's like a resource that you can use. But really a last resort to take him to a paraprofessional every single day. Like for a teacher aide to be inside the room, I do not think his disabilities require that type of one-on-one work. I do not think he needs one-on-one attention. It's just this behavior, and we have to pinpoint it. So in my professional opinion, we're going to go as long as possible without having that, because it's just a little unrealistic in my opinion. Moving on into category 4, we're going to focus on the debriefing of the problem and reflection. So my gut reaction was, Carl's going through a huge event in his life. This divorce, it's really petrified him, I think, and he doesn't know what to do. He's confused. Like, what would put yourself in the same situation as a third grader, and your parents are divorced? Your life would be a lot different. I think that's a question that you have to ask yourself when you're dealing with kids in a situation like this, and I don't think a lot of people think like that. You also have to be aware of the parents' feelings. They're going through the change of life too, and Carl's kind of on the back burner. Carl obviously is out of routine, and for anybody who with a disability, if you're out of routine, I mean, you're just out of your world. You don't know exactly what to do. And physical outbursts is, very normal. I work in a strictly special education school, and we have outbursts every single day. So this isn't a problem that I see to be very difficult. I thought it could have been handled a lot better by the administrator, Mrs. Green, who was involved. I don't think she approached the situation very well. She didn't go directly to the source. She kind of stayed in the back behind the scenes watching and analyzing things rather than going straight to the problem. Like, if I couldn't take care of this problem solely by myself, which I think that I could do with my background, I would go to the school counselor, and we would talk about their role and how and a plan to get Carl on the right track. And I would have him do weekly visits with him too. My feelings overall, I'm just kind of worried about the safety and education of the students in Mrs. Lewis's classroom. Mrs. Lewis, in my opinion, suffers probably from not being able to manage a classroom efficiently, even though she has 10 years of experience. Maybe she hasn't dealt with students who have special needs. Maybe she's never been involved in an outburst or something stressful, So I wouldn't point these things out to her. I would feel these things when I'd be around her, and I would try to, talk to her and get her through it, give her breaks all the time, have staff come in and out. And honestly, if she can't manage that class, she's not giving the students the education that they deserve. So I'm feeling worried about all the education for the students being cut short. And I'm valuing my staff people who are effective at problem solving and finding a resolution to this problem to provide appropriate education for all the students, because that is what we are here to do at the end of the day. We want to make sure that every student is receiving the best education possible, regardless of the situations. Moving on to unresolved issues. Inclusion is important here. An appropriate education is also very, very important here, as well as Carl's home and social environment. So these are issues that I don't really know much about, and I can't go out into unless I can do like a home visit or something, And moving on to category 5, reflection of standard 2. How did I, as an educational leader, promote the academic success of these students? So I focused on academic success by promoting inclusion in the classroom, only removing Carl when breaks were needed, just so he can never miss out on anything, and so he can have that education like everybody else is, so it's fair. I have behavioral rewards set up for him with activity choice. Role models can be implemented. He could be a class helper. That's an example of the kind of reward. And like I said, we can get a male paraprofessional in there to work with Carl, to be a role model for him, and to be one-on-one with him and give him that education if we can prove and get him qualified for a one-on-one for that. I also used appropriate district resources for Carl's disability, setting up those meetings with the school counselor, planning that IEP, writing out appropriate goals for him to hit every single day. And all the strategies that I mentioned allows Mrs. Lewis to concentrate on teaching her class rather than focusing all of her energy at Carl and trying to walk on eggshells around him. These are all ways and strategies that are promoting and benefiting our students' education at our school. Reflection on Standard 2 continued. How did you promote personal well-being for your students? How did you care for them? I took time to talk to Carl. I don't think you can be any more caring. I would show great rapport with him. I want to build a rapport with him. If I'm going in there and creating a relationship and showing him that I respect him and reason with him and talk to him, he's going to be understanding of that. And I can tell him that, hey, I can relate to this. I was young once. I've never been in a situation where my parents have been divorced, but I can't imagine how that would feel. You kind of got to level to them. Be a human. Go down to their level and show them that you're a human and you can be compassionate. And that's what I would do for Carl. Staff supports with special needs and collaboration is also implemented. And I think that the behavior committee is a huge thing for a school to have. So I would consult with them and make specific plans based on the strategies that were collaborated on in the meeting. And enhancing instructional capacity and closing. It is just so important as a leader of a school to just always be present and always be seen that you are taking care of issues and problems. Always be available, I think, as an administrator to solve these issues. When the sirens are on, you need to be there. You need to be there for your kids, and you need to lead them down the right path. And in doing all this, I created opportunities for Carl, students, and teacher, and that's what enhancing instructional capacity is all about. And lastly, I think collaboration amongst our school's resources and in giving teachers what they need, like teachers in services, educational videos, so that they can continue to learn on how to educate our students and how to deal with certain situations. The more experiences that these teachers are having, the more they are going to learn and grow, and the more that they can help our students succeed.